Welcome. Just yesterday, I made a brand new account just so I could show you how to build the best deck in the game and how to do it for free. Let's go. Very quickly, these were my stats after playing the game for only 1 hour on a brand new account. I was able to open over 100 packs. Now, to find out what the best deck in the game is, on MasterDuelMeta.com, we could either go to the top decks page, which we could clearly see its tier limit, or we can go on over to the tier list. Here it is, tier limit, best deck, and by far, the power level pretty much represents the percentage of tournament-topping decks among all community tournaments. Now, I know it's going to be very controversial to recommend the best deck to a new player, but I don't think new player equates to bad player. I would be okay being a new player in a new card game. Give me the best deck. I would want to work towards that, and being able to build it for free, that is incredible. Also, it's worth noting that the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Generally does not stay being the best deck for too long. This should be very good for at least 2 months. That's kind of the cycle of how decks do well and how long for. But for example, you have a deck like Sword Soul Tenyi or even Branded Despia. Sword Soul, which is top tier, not the best deck, but if we look at when it came out, back in May 2022, almost a full year where this deck was a good investment. Will tier limit be a good investment for more than a year? Only time will tell. There's no way to truly know. Now again, back to this, with only 1 hour of gameplay, I was able to build something like this. This is going to be the expected build for you to build. I'm going to guide you through it on exactly how to do it. To get to the expected build you see on the screen, what you're going to want to accomplish in game is very simple. You're going to want to go to the solo mode. You want to complete the tutorial, complete the duel restart, and then under duel training, you only have to complete duel strategy. Now, there is another achievement for a lot of gems, which is to simply beat any of these tutorials over again and just do it up to 20 times until the achievement no longer gives you gems. After doing so, you're going to go back to the main menu, and under missions, this is where you're going to collect all of your gems. Tons of gems from doing any of the solos up to 20 times, and then you're going to want to go to the shop. To the shop, we have 51 days left at the time of recording this. Blessings of Nature. This is going to be the main pack you want to pull from, and now let me give you exact guidance on what to do. Before I tell you what to craft, we're going to go to the deck. I'm going to open up a new deck here, and then with all of the packs you've been opening, you're going to click on Dismantle Selected Cards. You're going to then go to the filters, and we are going to highlight the filters, Super Rare, Ultra Rare, click OK, and anything that's not in my guide, you're going to dismantle. So this is not in the guide, this is not in the guide. You're going to just be grabbing everything not in the guide, and you're going to be getting all of the crafting resources here. Click Dismantle, and then you are good to get crafting. And you can now craft any card of that rarity for 30 points of that rarity. So we have 30 URCP. I could craft any ultra rare in the game. Now, if you want to actually learn how to play this deck, at the end of the video, I'm going to be displaying a common turn 1 and what to expect. So let's open this up. First, Ultra Rares Priority. These are going to be the general cards. Fully complete the solo mode before any crafting. All of this, win the solo mode, pretty much what I already said. Optional but recommended. You could do Duel Strategy 2 for extra gems. It's only 2 extra packs. And you could learn the gameplay better of Master Duel. Now, the URSR Crafting Priority. 30 URCP, craft any card from that. Super Rares are easy to craft. It's an abundant resource. Warning, if you craft an Ultra Rare, then open too many copies from a pack, you lose 20 URCP. So open as many packs as possible first before you end up crafting. All of these are going to be from the Blessing of Nature packs. In this order, number 1 priority, you're going to want to craft a Tearlaments Sharon. Tearlaments Sharon is a 2 of. Hopefully pull 1 from the pack, so I say craft just 1. You're going to want to craft 1 Tearlament Rhino Heart in this order. You're going to want 3 in general, but hopefully you pull a bunch from the pack. Also, there's another card that is a replacement temporarily. Then you want to craft a Tearlament Scream. This is a card you're going to want 2 to 3 of in the end. Then what's not in the pack, Kelbeck and Keldo. These are very powerful cards that you're going to have to craft since you can't get lucky, but you want to craft them after you craft these. Now, there are important ultra rare one-ofs that you will want to craft if you get really unlucky, but because you only need 1 of these cards, you really, ideally, hopefully, you just pull pull them from the pack. You want the field spell, Rukalos, Kaleido Heart. That is this, and that, because if you craft one, you will very likely pull one from the pack, possibly, and any copy more than one, you're going to end up dismantling, and again, like I said earlier, you're going to be losing the resource by doing that. After you no longer need ultra rares from the Blessings of Nature pack, which means you pretty much have all of these cards already, only then you could go to the shop and get the 750 gem bundle for 10 packs, which is normally 1,000 gems, and then you could get the Infinite Impermanence pack, which is a good one. Otherwise, just getting these packs for ultra rare CP is a good option. And then we're going to move on to the must craft ultra rares, but you could wait. These cards do not come from the pack you're pulling. Your deck will perform well without these cards, but you do definitely want them. So in this order, Terraforming, Instant Fusion, Abyss Dweller, and then for number 4, it's a tie between 1 Zeus, 1 Elf, and up to 3 Max C, which is the most popular card in the game, but the deck does function without this, and I'm going to be committing to doing my entire grind with the free-to-play account without Max C. So these are the cards real quick. That's the Dweller, that's a high priority over the others, the Terraforming, and the Instant Fusion. Now for the super rares. Super rares, again, are easy to craft. It's an abundant resource. This is pretty much the priority you're going to want to be crafting these in. 2 to 3 Supreme Sea Mare. It's going to be your main starter card. It's not going to be used in the final build. No one's using this in the final build, but if you do not have copies of Rhino Heart, if you're missing Rhino Heart because it's an ultra rare, you're going to want to fill in the empty spots with the Supreme Mare so you can get dueling, get more gems. This is going to help you get gems. Then you want 3 Foolish Barrel Goods, 3 Mudora, 2 Agido, 1 Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. You're going to want 3 DD Crow. Then for the extra deck, which again, this is still in this priority list, even though we're now going to the extra deck, you're going to want 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, a second copy if you have plenty of SR points, so you can go to, you know, pretty much the rest of these, then go back to the Dragostapelia, 1 Moo Dragon, 1 Dugaris, you're going to want 1 Buguska, you're going to want a Nightmare Phoenix, which is going to be very good for dealing with floodgates, and a the Dark Charmer Gloomy. And if you follow that guide, you're going to get pretty much this as your expected early build. This is including the normals and rares that you should be crafting. It's pretty much an infinite resource for those. If it's not a super rare, ultra rare, the Reinforcing the Army comes from the solo mode. Do not craft this. I swear I'll find you. You could then toss in a card like Meta Noise, which people aren't really playing, but you're filling out a basic deck. You have the rare Heartbeat. You could play up to 3 Sulliek to fill out your deck, a Tearlament's Crime. This will be an incomplete extra deck, but your deck is going to be great early on. This alone, I promise you, you could, with just this, but you're going to want to improve upon this. I think you could definitely get Diamond with this, at least Platinum, if you're playing this deck optimally. Now for me, this is where I'm at with my build. I got my 3 Rhino Heart. This is pretty much close to optimal. I got the Infinite Impermanence bundle. I got a ton of ultra rares in my extra deck. But for you, you're going to want to go to, let's say, the tier list, Tearlament page. Look at the usage stats. Look at some of the tournament deck lists. Some things are going to be user preference for what you want to build towards. Now let's discuss how to play this deck. You now have access to the best deck in the game, but how do you play it? Step 1 of Tearlament is summon your Kit Kalos. In order to do that, you need to trigger one of your 3 Tearlament girls from the main deck. The 2 main starters are your Rhino Heart or your Sharon to perform that play to get one of the 3 Tearlament girls in the grave to make your Kit Kalos to get going. Now with this hand, we don't have one of our main 2 starters, so we are going to use our Terraforming to search for our field spell, and our field spell is going to search for one of those 2 cards. Activate our field spell, come to us. We can now grab our Rhino Heart or our Sharon to perform our main plays. If you have a Tearlament girl already in your hand, it is a good idea to grab Sharon. But because Master Duel's most popular card is Max C, that makes you more susceptible to it. So either or is a good option, but for simplicity, I'm going to be grabbing Rhino Heart, which will be a normal summon. We're going to summon our Rhino Heart here, activate, and we're going to send any of our 3 Tearlament girls to the graveyard to activate their effect when sent to the graveyard. Now, when sent to the graveyard by card effect, they will activate to fuse. Number 1 priority being the Kit Kalos. We're going to come forth and summon it using the card that was sent to the graveyard, and the next priority to make the Kit Kalos would be, do we have another card in the graveyard to fuse with? If we did the Sharon play, we likely would have had another monster in the graveyard to fuse with, which could have been more efficient, but playing into a Max C. Otherwise, the next priority would generally be our hand, then our field. So we're going to use the Havnus in our hand, fusing with the Merly. Otherwise, if we didn't have any of these cards in the hand, we could have used the Rhino Heart. So put them in the bottom of the deck in any order, does not really matter. Come forth and summon our Kid Kalos. Now, Kid Kalos on summon is going to be activating to search our deck for a Tearlament card. Anytime a Tearlament card is returned back in the deck, this will want to activate as a hard once per turn to destroy any card on the field. Now, generally on your own turn, you will want to destroy your own cards, but right now we don't have a good play with that. So we're just going to be activating the Kid Kalos, and let's talk about what we would search for. Now, what's great about Tearlament is that there are so many different plays that will lead you to victory. Right now, you could grab a Merly, which would result in you milling 8, which will likely be milling good cards, resulting in a good final field. You could grab a Sharon if you did not activate it yet. You can grab a Rhino Heart if you did not activate it yet. If you already have a Tearlament in the hand or in the graveyard, you can grab a Scream. Even grabbing any of the Tearlament traps could be a good idea. If you were to do anything I just said here, you will still have a good turn 1. Now, I'm going to be preferring the Scream right here because I have a Tearlament in the hand and or the grave. Now, some people may prefer to not do that because they want to keep the Havnus in the hand. But generally, I'm going to say Scream's pretty good if we have a Tearlament in the hand or in the grave because it's going to mill 3. So we're going to activate the Scream. Now on summon, we're going to mill 3 cards from our deck. We're going to use the second effect of Kid Kalos, targeting itself to send itself to the graveyard to come forth and summon Tearlament from the hand or grave. That is going to be triggering the third effect of Kid Kalos to mill 5. The Scream will mill 3. If we instead summon the Merly by searching it, we would be setting up for a play to make a Sprite Elf, but you may not have this in an early build. Also, if we were to have summoned a level 4 onto the field instead, we would be setting up to make an Abyss Dweller. Let's now resolve both of our effects. We're going to activate, mill 8. Come forth and get millin, 3 mil, 5 mil. Now, this is where you may panic because a lot of cards in the graveyard are potentially going to be activating here. In the early ranks of Master Duel, you could just activate these as soon as they are asking you to activate if they are in the graveyard. What they're going to do is they're going to mill 5 cards for you and the opponent. So we're about to mill 10 if we were to activate both of them. In the later ranks and in the mirror match, you will not want to activate these cards unless you are desperate or you have them under the effect of Abyss Dweller, turning off their graveyard effects for you milling them. So I will repeat, early on in the early ranks, you could activate these, have fun, go wild, and you know what? For this case, I'm going to be activating them. Generally, you want to put your chain link on the lower chain link for the fusions, and your mills will be on the higher chain links unless you're searching your deck for a card. So let's put the fusion on chain link 1. We're going to then put the mill on chain link higher. So 1, 2, and then we're going to put it on 3. And by the way, very quickly, you do want to make your duel settings similar to mine so you could choose the chain link order. So screenshot this, pause this, whatever you got to do. Just like that, let's get back to the gameplay. Now, generally, these cards will also be asking you to activate, but they are a quick effect, so not a trigger. They're asking if you would like to shuffle a card from your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard into the deck. Now, these could be very good with your field spell to shuffle your own Tearlament back into your deck to activate the field spell to pop a card in the field. We're going to pass on that. So let's resolve this mill, mill, and we're going to perform a fusion. So our second and third priority, because we have 3 Tearlament girls, which means we're going to usually have 3 Tearlament fusions every turn, it's going to be to make a Rukalos or a Kaleido Heart. The Kaleido Heart is more expensive and harder to make because it's requiring 3 monsters and a Rhino Heart. This is going to be the Kid Kalos plus a Tearlament, which is easier to make. If you have the field spell on the field and you have not activated it to pop a card in the field, you will want to make your Kaleido Heart over anything else. But first, you want to check your graveyard. We have a Rhino Heart in the graveyard, so it will be an effective summon and not having to use the one on the field. So generally, that's going to be very good. We also have a Tearlament, a second one, and an Aqua, so we could summon the Kaleido Heart efficiently. Come forth, Kaleido Heart, using the Sharon, and we already used the Merly effect. We did not use Havnus, so you do want to remember them. I know this is going to be confusing. Maybe, slow this down, rewatch it a couple times. Do not use the Kid Kalos for the Kaleido Heart summon. I'm going to use Merly, and then the Rhino Heart's going to fulfill the third requirement, the main requirement of the fusion. Come forth and summon our Kaleido Heart. Now, this card is nuts, and our other cards are wanting to trigger off of us milling so many. So let's figure out what we're we're supposed to do here. If you're keeping track, this is our second fusion, and we're about to activate our third and final fusion for the turn. Our first fusion being the Kid Kalos, our second one being the Kaleido Heart or a Rukalos, and now we're on to our final third fusion, which since we, out of the three, have not summoned Rukalos yet, that's going to be the one we want to summon. Again, generally, it is better to put your Tearlament fusion effects on the first chain link, so it's the first one you want to activate. Now, the other cards have great effects too. The Sulliek, when sent to the grave, will search for a Tearlament. We're going to search for a Tearlament. The other effect, the Scream, very good, is going to be searching for a Tearlament trap. So we're going to activate that. And like I said, if you have not activated your field spell yet, you're going to want to activate that onto your Kaleido Heart. So just like that. Otherwise, if you're not making a Kaleido Heart play and you did not trigger your Scream, popping your own Scream could be a good option to search for a Tearlament trap. This is why we searched it with Kid Kalos. Beyond that, you could also instead pop your Havnis or Tearlament on the field if you did not activate their effect to fuse yet. So these are not going to be good options. And if we have a Tearlament card in our hand, we could even consider popping our Rhino Heart to then resummon it by discarding a Tearlament to trigger that effect. There's just so many options with Tearlaments. That's why it's a lot of fun. And again, I'm going to repeat, even though there's so many options, if you just choose to do something, anything, just click yes to most of the effects, you will usually result in winning the duel. So we're going to be popping our Kaleido Heart here. Do not chain any of these. These are quick effects, not trigger effects. So let's resolve this now. Popping our Kaleido Heart, activating the Scream, searching for our card, resolving it, I should say. And then we are now going to be resolving our other effect. Now the question is, what do we search with the Sulliek? Generally, if you already use Sharon and you already use Rhino Heart, you're going to want to search for a Havnis because she has the effect to summon on the field during your opponent's turn if they activate a monster effect in the field. But we do not have that in the deck, and we have not used Sharon effect yet. She's going to be very important for a final good field. Generally, you're going to want 2 level 4s on the field. So we're going to search Sharon here as long as we have a monster in the hand to discard, which we do. So Sharon, come to me. And now let's resolve our final fusion, which will be the Rukalos as the main priority after you summon Kid Kalos. So we're going to use the Havnis and the Kid Kalos. It's required for the fusion. Come forth and summon Rukalos. Now, because we sent the Kaleido Heart to the graveyard through the effect of the field spell, we're going to activate its effect to summon onto the field. And this effect also triggers if your opponent sends it to the graveyard by card effect, or if you send it to the graveyard through the effect of Rukalos, or if you send it to the graveyard through the effect of your Sulliek. So let's now resolve it, say no to these effects. Come forth, Kaleido Heart. Part of the effect of it summoning onto the field is to send a card from your deck to the graveyard. Since you only have 3 Tearlament fusion girls that trigger the fusion that is in the main deck, if this is your second fusion summon and you did not trigger your third Tearlament girl, this is where you would generally send the third girl to the graveyard, but we already activated all 3, so we do not need to do that. The next priority would be, did we activate Scream in the graveyard to search for a trap? Well, we did, so we don't have to send that. Another option could be, did we activate the Sulliek in the graveyard to search for a monster? We did. Well, I happen to be playing Heartbeat, which has an effect, if sent to the graveyard, add a trap in the grave to the hand. So we're going to send this to the graveyard with the Kaleido Heart, and then it's going to be triggering to add a trap in the grave to the hand. We're going to add the other trap that we do not have, which is Crime, since we do have the Sulliek already. Come to me, Crime. Now, I will mention this here. If at any point your opponent is activating any of their Tearlament girls in their graveyard, you could activate any of your Shizu cards targeting their monsters to spin them back in the deck to nullify the fusion. They're not going to be able to fuse. That's also how the Deity Crow works. You target their Tearlament monster that's activating to either resummon, it could be a Kaleido Heart, Rukalos, or the fusion effect of the Havnis or any of the other Tearlament girls. All of these will stop it. So we're going to pass on this. Let's resolve. We got the Crime, we got the Sulliek. Now our field is not done yet. We have the unactivated Sharon that we would love to activate. We're going to be activating it, summoning onto the field, discarding a monster from the hand. We're going to discard our Shizu card. Generally, those are going to be the ones we want to be discarding. And then our extra deck is lighting up because we got 2 level 4s on the field. This is going to be our Dweller play. Come forth forth and summon our Abyss Dweller. Now, Abyss Dweller is going to be very important for winning the mirror match, but you should not be seeing this deck in the early ranks unless everyone starts watching this video and making this deck. If you make the Abyss Dweller early and you activate it, then it is safer to be activating your Shizu cards that mill. Because if you mill your opponent's deck, they're going to be activating their cards, and this would turn it off completely. Also, during your opponent's turn, it will turn off their graveyard completely. Even against non-tier limit decks, this could be very good for just turning off your opponent's graveyard for whatever that could be activating there or whatever you have milled there. Now, this is where we could just set our traps into the back row. We could now end our turn, but before ending our turn, we could look at our graveyard and look at our shufflers. If you have more than one of the same name, you can consider activating them. Let's just do it for simplicity to look at your opponent's graveyard and see if there's anything that does something with the grave. So let's pretend that these do something with the grave. We could shuffle them back before the opponent's turn, before they could interact with them. Also, we could look at our own graveyard for anything you may want to shuffle. But if you're not experienced with what to shuffle from your own graveyard, you could just hold on to the effects and wait with them, see if they activate a tier limit card in their graveyard, and that's going to be what you want to shuffle. And it's going to generally be a tier limit monster that you want to shuffle back. So let's return that back and let that resolve. Now, let's see what we could do during the opponent's turn. Generally, when you get more advanced, you're going to want your toggle on at this moment so you can use your cards at any moment. Now, as our opponent is activating Dispel, let's talk about all of the disruption we have. It is an insane amount. It's a lot to go over. But again, if you pretty much activate anything at the lower ranks, you're going to very easily win. Now, let's start off with Rukalos. If the opponent activates any effect that would result in special summoning, it would be asking you if you would like to activate her effect. Well, it's not being asked right now, so they're not attempting a special summon. You then have Abyss Dweller. You activate this during your opponent's turn or your turn, it's going to turn off their graveyard. You then have Kaleido Heart. If any Aqua is sent to your graveyard, this will activate to spin a card in the field back in the deck. Also, if you could get it into the graveyard through card effect, it's going to resummon from the grave, spin a card in the field back in the deck if you did not do that already. Also, sending a card from your deck to the graveyard, which we talked about earlier, which could trigger a fusion or search a card. Now, even better is our back row. We have tier limit Crime. If we at least have a monster in our hand, we could activate the Crime to pretty much negate anything, which would be this Dispel if we wanted to. Then we have Sulliek. This could negate any monster on the field permanently, then sending a monster we control to the graveyard. So looking at our field, if we sent our Kaleido Heart to the graveyard, that's going to result in a lot more plays. We could send Hovness to the graveyard after negating a monster to then trigger a fusion. Let's also talk about the Scream. On the opponent's turn, if they summon a monster while you control tier limit, you're going to mill 3, which will trigger fusions, trigger Kaleido Heart, and very likely trigger your field spell. Also, this is going to reduce all of your opponent's monsters by 500 attack. And then we have the field spell. The field spell during the opponent's turn is going to be able to pop any card in the field as long as a tier limit is shuffled back in your deck. So it's either after you fuse, or we could use any of our shuffler cards, activating it, targeting a tier limit that's in our graveyard. If there is not one, you could detach with your Abyss Dweller to make sure there is one. That will trigger your field spell to pop any card on the field. Now, to be funny, we are going to activate our Crime to negate the Dispel. Dispel, negate. You will not be destroying my field spell. That's going to require us to discard our DD Crow. Be gone. Now, very likely the tutorial character here is not going to be making any big plays, but I'll show you what we can still do. So with that, now the opponent is in the end phase. So let's try a funny, cool little play. We're going to use an Ishizu Shuffler, activating it, targeting a tier limit in our graveyard to shuffle back into the deck. We have a Merly, back into the deck, you go. Now, that's going to be triggering our field spell to pop a card on the field. If they have back row, this could be a decent card to get popping. Otherwise, I'm going to pop Kaleido Heart again. Kaleido Heart, going to activate in the graveyard after being sent, resummon, back onto the field, come forth, and as part of resolving this, it does not activate separately, it's going to send a card from the deck to the grave. We're going to send the Merly. Merly being sent to the grave is going to be activating its effect to perform a fusion summon. We're also going to be triggering the effect of Kaleido Heart to spin a card in the field back into the deck. we'll also be triggering the Tier Limit Scream to mill 3 cards from our deck to the graveyard. Let's go, go, go. Now, I know this is going to be really daunting for a lot of new players, but I believe playing a deck like this for a new player in the early ranks, you're going to have very easy wins. And with the really high ceiling of having to learn this deck, I think it's going to make you a lot better at the game. So right here, we could summon a Kid Kalos using the Merly and a monster in the graveyard. Come forth and summon, put these at the bottom in any order. And the Kid Kalos on your turn generally wants to be searching a card, but on the opponent's turn, you're going to instead want to generally send the monster from your deck to the graveyard to trigger a fusion. So let's activate the Kid Kalos to search. We also have another fusion if we want. So let's pretend like our Root Kalos already activated its effect to negate an effect to special summon. So we're going to be doing that. Let's get sended. And if you're paying attention, you do want to remember the 3 main tier limit monsters that activate to fuse. We've activated the Merly. We're activating Hovness right now. We have not activated the Sharon. So we're going to be sending the Sharon to the graveyard. So click no. And then the Hovness is going to resolve its fusion, summoning a Dragostapelia. Dragostapelia going to use the Hovness and a fusion monster. This could be the Kid Kalos or the Root Kalos that already activated. So come forth. So we'll pretend like we negated something good. And now we got Dragostapelia, which can negate any monster in the field, also changing their level to 1, which could disrupt a Synchro or an Exceed play. Now let's resolve the 3rd and final fusion, which was sent to the graveyard, to resummon the Root Kalos if you want, or we could resummon a second version of the Dragostapelia, which both could activate. And you do not want to use the Dragostapelia unless it already activated. You will want to use your Kid Kalos generally. And there you go. You could also, if you're playing Fairy Tail Snow, it gets a bit more complicated. This is a continuous trap, which could negate. Also, make sure you Abyss Dweller when you can during their turn. And that is a basic rundown of what this deck is going to do. It is absolutely nuts. Now, let's very quickly attack for game, wrapping up this duel. Music changes when you have lethal damage, and just like that, finish him. All right, we're going to end this video with a ×2 speed duel to get a quick little feeling of how you're going to be playing with this deck and what it's going to look like playing against others. I don't take pleasure in clapping up people at the lower ranks. It's the only way to make a video guide like this. I'm already in Platinum. I'll be climbing to Diamond very quickly soon. I just can't believe how quickly and easily I was able to build the best deck with pretty much no friction. 150 plus packs open for free in less than a day. I don't know what other games you could really do that. So we're playing against a Witchcrafter deck. Obviously, you know, this deck's not very good, but, you know, it looks like maybe kind of a seasoned player playing this. They have the deck built quite well, even though the deck itself is not that good. We have our Root Kalos out right now, which will be able to negate any special summon effects, special summoning our Rhino Heart. We got a Mood Dragon, which will be fusing with your Tier Limit plus a DD Crow to help make a rank 4 Exceed. The Abyss Dweller will completely turn off the graveyard. The Meta Noise will flip a monster face down. This will negate any monster on the field. The Crime will just absolutely negate anything. I'm going to chain Abyss Dweller. Now, this card's going to make it so I can't chain to their card effects, so I can't even negate this if they're going to be using it in response to my Scream. So right now, my whole field is negated, but we absolutely don't care. We're milling cards. We are activating cards. We have Rhino Heart resummoning, discarding to then fuse again. I can return the Root Kalos back to the deck. I'm sending another card from the deck to the graveyard. Do not get intimidated from this replay. Since my Root Kalos was already negated, we're getting rid of it, making our Kaleido Heart on summon, going to spin a card in the field back of the deck. We still have a negate any monster, negate any card. Kid Kalos is here, which could send a card from the deck to the graveyard, and then we're going to fuse with that card, come forth and resummon our Root Kalos like it wasn't even negated. Going to Raigeki my entire field. Instead of blowing up my field, I'm going to use Tier Limit's Crime to just negate it. And even if it did wipe my field, Kaleido would resummon, Root Kalos would resummon. This is just, it's disgusting. This is the best deck, and now you got it for free and very easily. Now, if you want to get better with the deck or at Master Duel in general, I have a few recommendations for you. First, you could check out the top decks page to always see up-to-date latest decks that are doing well. You can go to the tier list, which is an even better metric to see what decks are doing well. You can click on the deck type page of the deck you care about to see the usage stats of each card, of what people are using. You can scroll on down to the best versions of the deck decks, which will be showing all the tournament decks towards the top, sorting by the most recent ones, and a good sample deck will generally be here. You could also, if there is a recent guide, you could check out the guide for a deck like Tearlaments. I also did an in-depth 58-minute ultimate guide video where I go more in-depth into the combos and plays and talk about each card individually. And you could also learn from top players by watching tournaments. This is a 3-hour, 30-minute VOD of a recent $2,000 tournament. Also, there are weekly tournaments, $2,000 qualifier tournaments every single week on Sunday on twitch.tv/Decade around 4 p.m. EST. Also, another big recommendation is to join the Master Duel Discord server. Ask for help in the help channels, discord.com/invite Master Duel Meta. It's an open public Discord for everyone. That happens to also be the largest, most active Discord for just Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, but it is targeted for Master Duel. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. We are out.